Hey kids, John here. I want to talk about breath support, or how we support with our air. And to do so, I think I also need to talk about breath control. These are two things that go together. Breath control and breath support are two parts of a whole. And if you're missing one, it's not going to function as well as it could. And so this is how I look at this whole picture of breath support and breath control. I learned how to deal with and how to develop breath control, which can be very confusing, through using the Earl D. Irons book, 27 Groups of Exercises. It's a great book. I know there's a lot of people that are going to say Schlossberg. That's fine. Use Schlossberg for whatever you want. I grew up using this particular book and studying it in a particular way that allowed me to discover how to use less air and be more efficient. I've referenced in another video the great Rafael Mendez, who talks about playing phrases longer and longer and yet longer again. He doesn't talk about taking a bigger and bigger and bigger breath. He talks about only using as much air as we do in normal conversation to play the trumpet. So in that video, he really unlocks a key to how we should approach playing trumpet, and that is to be conservative with our air. And this is very backwards than most people think. They actually think to use more air, and I'm putting a lot of air into the horn, that kind of concept. To reverse engineer that, to change the way you look at the way you're using your air, I would look at the Earl D. Irons book, group 1 through 4. It's page 5. He talks about playing it very slow, soft, and with great control and flexibility. Once you have that, then you actually extend the exercise to be played as written very slow. When you're looking at these exercises, you think, oh, this is very easy, and you kind of quickly move through them, which is not what is meant to happen here. In his very first group, we're looking at a very simple exercise, but this teaches you breath, control, and mechanics. So the idea here is to play it very soft with as much control as you can develop. But the other piece of this puzzle that isn't necessarily discussed is that you're trying to use a very small airstream. So instead of, and that airstream would be on a G. Okay, that's a larger sound. So the concept is to get so you're getting a smaller airstream. So the idea is to use this very small airstream to play these exercises. And if you play these exercises that way, it's a very small airstream, okay? If you learn to play it that way, it's going to change the way you think about playing trumpet, because you can transfer that small airstream into greater dynamics. So you can practice this book the way it was meant to be practiced and actually get control over your flexibility and your air control, being able to change your airstream down to a very small airstream and then bringing it back and opening up. On group 3, that's exactly what he's having you work on. So you're learning that control of a very small airstream and then being able to use a little bit more energy and get the crescendo and then back it back down. This is absolute control. That's what you're learning with this. So one of the things you can do is you can use a piece of paper and you can really focus on getting a very steady, small airstream. And seeing what note that starts. Okay, that starts a G. If I slow the air down, there's a C. So if you speed the air up, there's a C. Slow it down. Wow. This is just stuff to think about and experiment with. But the bottom line for me is gaining breath control and being able to play. With a very tiny airstream. All right, so that deals with breath control. This starts to teach you how to do that. Once you get control over that small stream, it's amazing some of the things you can actually do with a very small stream. Okay, you can hear the notes start to develop with just a tiny bit of air. Okay? I'm barely using any air to play that high C. I'm not doing anything. There's hardly any air coming out of my mouth, and I played a high F. That was kind of freaky, right? So, to make the note sound, you don't need gigantic amounts of air. So I talk about moving air through the energy in this mechanism that we have down in here. And one of the ways to do that, to figure out what that feels like, is coughing. And sustain that cough. Oh man, things are pushing down here. And the other is to yell. Like seriously yell. Hey! That's the most natural thing to me. That's the boom, it's right there. So if I think I'm yelling, but I got control, I can play different volumes now. Okay? I can adjust how much energy I want to activate these notes with. I couldn't do that if I didn't learn. how to do that. It's not just playing soft. It's that tiny little airstream. I talk about breathing. I like to say put it low into your lungs. And what I mean by that is to take a breath and think of it as being down low. Like that. Fill up the bottom and then let it come into your chest a little bit, but don't create tension. So I recently saw something that Arbin wrote in the Arbin book about breathing, and he said not to let your stomach expand, but it should contract as your chest expands. Interesting concept. So I tried it. And think of pinning your stomach to your backbone as you breathe in. I was like, whoa, what was that? Totally different concept. But it gave me like instant support. So there's different ways to look at how to get that support. So if you want to buy into the idea that you're breathing low, you're going to have to activate the air after you put it in your body. So if you put it low, you have to breathe in and then compress. Which works. But in the method that Arbin uses, you're compressing as you're breathing in. Instant support. Very interesting. So this support mechanism is very important to our upper register. But it's not the only thing that gets us there. It's a combination of control, support, relaxation in your upper body, proper mechanics, what your jaw, what your mouth is doing. Some people have different concepts of what's happening in the mouth. That's great. You try different things. You can do some of the things I talk about. If that doesn't work for you, kick me to the curb and find somebody's stuff that works for you. The bottom line for me is I think we have to activate control before we can actually start activating the support. I think the control teaches us not to play as loud, not to use as much air. Because if you blow too much air, that's me just blowing like crazy. Isn't that what air support is? No, you're overblowing. You're not controlling the support you're adding. So, support is very important, but control is the other thing that directs or measures the support. Super clean, much better. I have control over not only the air, but the note too. Now that I have both things put together, I can control things better. Way more control. In order to learn support, you can use whatever method you want, but you need to learn how to play soft with a small airstream and still get a relatively round, full sound. And so on. That kind of control is the key to unlocking the upper register. I think that the Irons book is a great way to learn it. Read what he says to do, follow his instructions, play through that book, have absolute patience to get these exercises correct. Once you get to 27, you should be doing things very well. If you're playing them correctly, getting a good sound. It's not what you play more than how you're playing it. The how is the biggest part, and that is learning control and really gaining control of your breath. Control and support. They go together. I hope this helps. Take it easy, kids.